Hey YouTube, today I'm going to show you how to fix the power jack on your Inspiron 1545 laptop. Power jack is connected to the motherboard, so first thing you want to do is pull out the battery. I recommend having a nice little precision screwdriver kit like this one right here. This is the one that I like to use, and it's really cheap. It's like $8 or $10 off of Amazon, or actually I think even cheaper than that. You want to hold your power button for at least 20 seconds to let any and all power in the system run out. Sorry, at least 10 seconds. I'm going to put a link to the screwdriver kit in the description below. It works really well. It's got an extension, all the basic bits that you need. It's really nice to have one around. So let's go ahead and get started. And I recommend using the biggest Phillips head that there is in there for this. It also comes with a pair of tweezers to help you pull out any screws that fall into bad spots, and that's really helpful. So first thing you want to do is take off the caging for your RAM and CPU. So let's go ahead and get that off. And there is 1, 2, 3, 4 screws for that. This is not for that, so you do not need to take that off yet. That is actually for your CD drive. And you want to make sure you're stowing your screws in a safe spot where they're not going to get knocked down by a child or a cat or any sort of pet. Because if you lose these screws or put them in the wrong location, you can cause problems. If you haven't already done so, if you could please like, comment, share this video, subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to, once you've unscrewed everything, you're sure that they're unscrewed, you can stick your finger or something like that underneath this paneling right here. You will see the little bump, and lift up and pull out, and it'll come right off. Okay, to release your RAM, you have 2 clips on either side, and you press them outward and the RAM will pop up. There we go. Then you just pull it out of the socket. And same thing with the second one. You do also need to disconnect your Wi-Fi leads. And you do not need to worry about reconnecting them later, because there is a sticker that shows you where black and white go separately. So you don't need to be worried about that. You also need to take off your heatsink. And the way you want to do that is you want to do it alternating screws. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then your last screw over there. If you haven't already done so, I do recommend that you guys go ahead and upgrade the processor on this laptop. I upgraded mine. It cost, I don't know, somewhere around $40 or $50 or something like that, to the T9600, which is worlds faster than the T4200 that my computer came with. The T4200 was a 2 GHz dual core processor with, I believe, a 1 MB cache, and not a lot of technology as far as the computer goes, while the T9600 is a 2.6 GHz dual core with a 6 MB cache, and a lot of the new virtualization technology and things of that sort. So it does make a world of a difference. And once that's unscrewed, all you have to do is lift up from the center, try and apply even pressure to the whole thing, and you should be able to lift it right off. If your CPU is lacking thermal paste, I do suggest you put some more on. However, mine is fine. So once that's done, you have 3 locking screws around the computer, which are all labeled with a D. There's 1, 2, and 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you keep your D screw separate, which are these 2, and then these 2 have a little trash can like symbol next to them. You want to keep those separate as well. So let me go ahead and pull this out. First D screw, second D screw, And the magnetic bits on this screwdriver really help quite a bit. Makes things much easier, much simpler. I apologize if the video is not quite capturing everything that I'm doing. However, if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask me. Post it in the comment section below. I'm normally pretty good about replying to them, and I can normally help you out with any problem you have. This is for your optical drive, this screw right here. So I am going to go ahead and take that out now, and I'm going to put that aside, and I will put my optical drive right next to it later, that way I remember. After that, you want to take out your paneling screws, which are all around the body, and for this I'm actually going to use the extension that comes with the screwdriver kit, which is this right here. There we go. And go ahead and pull out your paneling screws. And I'm not quite sure if I actually have one in there. Looks like I do. And again, you want to keep your paneling screws separate from everything else, that way they do not get mixed up. I'm putting them all in separate piles on my desk here. And it's really important to make sure you take out all these paneling screws, because you will need to have them all out to take out your paneling when you flip the laptop over. Also, if you are missing any from your laptop, this is a good time to replace them. You do kind of need all of them on there. If you do not have all of them on there, you're actually going to have looser paneling on the front side, which can cause problems, because it can make your paneling have weak spots and you know, a little bit of fragileness to it, and that's really a bad thing because it will crack and break on you. Oops. One of my screws just went bouncing away as I let it go. Sometimes these can be a pain to take out. If that is the problem, go ahead and use your screwdriver as well as your tweezers to help you pull them out, and it shouldn't be too bad. Now, while I'm doing this, I'm also going to be replacing my CPU fan, because after 4 years of using this computer, mine did actually just go out. So if you are watching the video for the CPU fan, this is the exact same process. You're going to need to take everything apart. And again, I will post a link to the CPU fan, as well as my screwdriver kit and the processor, the T9600 upgraded processor, in the description below, so check it out. Even if you don't plan on purchasing it, just click through it and look and browse. It takes you straight to Amazon, so it does benefit me if you click on the link. However, it's not anything crazy. If you do purchase after clicking on my link, it does not cost you a dime extra either. Okay, so that is your lower battery screws, and there are 2 of them usually, and you want to take both of them out and keep them aside. Okay, let's flip it over now. And the first thing we want to do is, when you open it up, you want to slide your finger or a screwdriver or my tweezers right here underneath this notch in the paneling on the right side, and you should be able to see it quite easily. And it does feel a little bit tough. However, if you slide your finger in there, and it will pop off the clips. And just make sure your monitor is actually back, because if not, you will snap paneling. But if it is back, it'll come off nice and easy, just like that. Once that's done, we need to start pulling off our keyboard screws right here. There are 3 of them, I believe. And again, make sure you keep your screws safe, as well as any other parts you do take off. And there are my 3 screws for my keyboard. Once that is done, you can go ahead and lift up your keyboard very carefully, pull it out, and move it that way, and you will have a little strap, a little your keyboard cable right there. And what you need to do is you actually need to pull up on this little black part right here, and that'll release the cable. And then once that's done, you can pull it out. And it's going to be the same procedure for basically everything else on here. Like, here's your trackpad cable, and you just push up on the little black tab which locks it in, and then you pull it out. It's just that simple. It's the same thing for your power cable. Pull up on the black tab and your power cable will come out. For any of these other cables, like these right here, just pull on them on either side. You can see they have little white tabs on either side of them, so pull on them on either side, nice even pressure, and they should come right out. Right here, your display cable, what you actually need to do is grab it and pull it up with nice even pressure from the base of the tag, because this is a push-in one, and it should pop right out. There we go. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Again, if you guys have any problems, questions, or concerns, feel free to write in the comments, and I will address them as soon as possible. Now I'm using my nail on one side of this and a screwdriver on the other side of this to go ahead and pull those out. Not the screwdriver, I mean the tweezers, sorry about that. Kind of focused on this right now. When you do pull out the cables on this side, what you want to do is go ahead and unroute them from their little channels that they're in, which is this right here, and it makes it much simpler later on to move everything out of the way. Once that is done, you also need to take off your paneling screws all around here. So you have 1 paneling screw, 2 paneling screws, 3 paneling screws, and I believe that's it. So let's pull those out really quick. Screw 1, screw 2, and screw 3. Feel free to pause the video at any time, obviously, if you're having a hard time keeping up with this. Once you're done with that, you want to grab your paneling under here and you want to lift up slightly, and you should hear the clip on this side pop. So again, grab your paneling from right here, and lift it up, and there should be a clip right around there that you should hear pop off. And then basically you can take your tweezers and go all around your paneling and lift up at the spots where you feel a clip, and it should all just nice and easily and cleanly pop off. What you do need to do is you do need to also take off this little screw right here, because it does hold in your paneling, and I always forget about that. But there we go. You don't need to take it all the way off, you just need to unscrew it a little bit. There we go. Once that's done, you can go ahead and remove your optical drive. There we go. And just make sure I put it with my optical drive screw. Should be this one right here. Okay. And once that is done, just make sure you have all your cables out. So I'm going to pull out my power cable. You also want to go ahead and let's see, take off your hard drive screw, which is located right here. And again, I emphasize you want to keep your screws near the things that they go with, and you want to keep them in a safe spot. So I'm going to put my hard drive screw right next to my hard drive, and the hard drive, once you do unscrew it, the hard drive should pull straight out. At least it should. Let me check and make sure that I do not have any screws holding the hard drive in, which I do not. So the hard drive should, in theory, pull straight out. I don't know why it's not willing to. There we go. Just required a little bit of force. once, whoa, I just had something fall. Nope, looks like my hard drive screw was stuck to my finger. Okay. Okay, now, once that is done, I prefer to take apart the whole laptop. So what I would say is go ahead and take off your card right here, which has one screw right here to hold it to the board. You also want to pull out this little tab right here. That will give you access to your inner screws. And give me 1 second, let me go ahead and bring my camera around. Okay, so let me bring my camera around. Okay, so this paneling, this screw right here is what I was talking about. Let's see, the computer should be able to see that pretty well. And this is the paneling that I was talking about. You pull it straight out, and there's no screws retaining that. Once that is done, you will notice two screws on the inside right here that you need to go ahead and unscrew. So there is number 1. And there is number 2. Okay, once that is done, you should be able to lift this piece straight off. There we go, and it is connected right there, so you will need a little bit of force to lift it off. But again, do not force it. If it feels like it is stuck, it probably is. Once that is done, you can take off your motherboard screws, which you have one right here. There's motherboard screw number 1. And you have one down here. Sorry, 2 down here. So once that is done, let me go ahead and move this camera over. Once that is done, you have 2 motherboard screws right over here. Now, for those of you that don't know, your charging board is right here. It is actually underneath your motherboard, but it is connected to it. So when you do take off your motherboard, you want to be careful. And we will get to that in just 1 second. Okay, there's my motherboard screws. So right now my motherboard should be able to lift off. However, it is still connected to that. So what I would do, the connection is right here. So what you want to do is lift up from both sides of this kind of gently and wiggle it out, and it should come right off of there. Once that is done, you want to carefully lift off your motherboard and place it on some sort of anti-static wrap. And you want to be very careful with it. You do not want to get anything on it because you can mess up circuits. You also don't want to have any static electricity hitting it. You want to be very careful of that. Once that is done, you actually have your power jack right down here, and it's held in by 2 screws. So for demonstration purposes, I am going to take this one off. There is screw number 1 and screw number 2. Once that is done, it should pull straight off, and you can replace your power jack, put in a new one. Let's say this is my new one right here. I'm going to go ahead and grab it, put it on top. It should line up. There is a little piece of plastic that pushes through the center, and then this goes right into here. And then later you're going to go ahead and set it up. So now onto the CPU fan replacement. I am going to go ahead and, well, let me screw in the power board first. That way I do not lose any parts or anything of that sort. Again, with computers, you do not want to over tighten your screws. You want to go about hand tight, and you do not want to put too much torque into it because you can actually squish and shred your board as well as your screws. So let's go ahead and take out our CPU fan. There is a screw right over there if you cannot see that. I am unscrewing it at the moment, and that should be out. I believe there's one more screw right over here. Again, there will be links to all the parts that I'm showing you in the description below, so feel free to check them out. It takes you directly to Amazon.com, and purchasing it through there does not cost you anything more. Generally, they have very good prices, and I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, now let me show you. This is what happened to my CPU fan. It was actually The top got cracked because, I'm assuming because it was old and it got heated. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my new CPU fan, which I ordered off Amazon, and pull it out of its packaging. Also, there will probably be a video on near the bottom left corner of your screen. It should be linking to something pretty entertaining, so if you guys do check that out, I'd appreciate that as well. I'm a college student who's a computer science major, and you know, just doing things like this is kind of my hobby, but it's also nice to get some reward out of it. So if you guys could help me out with that, it would be awesome, and I would really appreciate it. Again, you don't even have to purchase anything. Just click through the links and subscribe to the channel, stuff like that. Leave me a comment saying thank you if you liked the video, or not thank you, and tell me what a scumbag I am if you didn't like the video, or whatever it may be. But I do appreciate it as a YouTube creator. I appreciate criticism. If you guys have constructive criticism, you want to help make my videos better, that's great. Feel free to tell me anything that you would like. Okay, now I've put my 2 screws back into my fan on either corner. I have tied down, screwed down my board. What I want to do next is go ahead and get my motherboard back in there. So you want to very carefully grab it and make sure it's set up correctly. Make sure none of your wires are in your way, and you want to go ahead and lay your motherboard down. Make sure, again, none of your wires are in the way, which unfortunately some of mine are, like this one right here, this one right here. Basically, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires to move out of the way, I believe. Let me just make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wires to move out of the way. So make sure you go ahead and do that. All my wires appear to be out of the way, so I'm going to go ahead and drop my motherboard in. Now you want to be careful when doing this. You want to keep in mind that your motherboard should go in without too much effort at all. The one thing that I will say is you do need to pull your paneling back just a little bit so that your audio input ports can go ahead and line up. But besides that, everything should be nice and easy. Let's go ahead and slide it in there. Giggity. And once you have this lined up, you can go ahead and push down your motherboard, and it should be lined up perfectly with your port, with your power jack underneath, and it should snap into place. However, if it doesn't do that, you can go ahead and put it in together, as in take out your motherboard, put the power jack on, and then put it all in together, which it appears that I'm going to go ahead and have to do that. I do not want to have to force my power jack in, so you want to be careful about that. If you do force it, you will bend pins and possibly ruin both your motherboard and the power supply. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that off really quick. Screw number 1, screw number 2. Alright, looks like we're good. And then you want to grab your power jack. Grab your power jack. Very carefully flip your motherboard over, and what you will see is that you have your connection for your power jack right over here. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and line it up. Be very careful while lining it up, and then you want to push the boards together by pushing on both of them on either side. Again, being very careful not to damage any parts or put too much pressure. It really shouldn't be too hard. And let me go ahead and flip it over. I can do this very carefully. And just for reference, there are 2 screw ports that should line up. Okay, and you want to push that together really well on either side. Be careful, do not push on any of your circuits or anything of that sort, but I am pushing it together right there. There are 2 screw ports on the actual connector that should line up. Sorry, yeah, 2 screw ports right there and right there. And then you want to go ahead and push it together once it is lined up, and then you can go ahead and put your motherboard back in. Again, make sure none of the wires are in the way. You should have 6 wires that you need to make sure are not in the way. If they are, they will cause problems, so try and take care of that before you put your motherboard in, like I am so desperately attempting to do. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt to make sure nothing gets in the way. 6 wires, you move one, the other one gets in the way. You move the other one, this one gets in the way. So kind of interesting to do that. So when you do have this set up, what you're going to have to do is line it up and then drop in your power jack first, and then you can go ahead and line up your motherboard. So keep that in mind, otherwise you guys will be fumbling and you will possibly mess things up. So bend your paneling a little bit, push in the audio jacks, and then all you have to do is go ahead and screw everything back down and plug everything back in. So what I will tell you guys is, if your computer does not work upon initial startup after doing this procedure, do not panic. A lot of times the problem is that you didn't put your power cable back in all the way, and that's even happened to me a couple times. It's nothing to panic about. It's really not a big deal, but it is kind of frustrating and worrisome when it does happen. So be prepared for that if it does happen. Go ahead and screw my motherboard back in. And again, go in reverse order. Make sure you have all your screws. Make sure you put all of them back in. You should be able to tell where everything came from rather easily. Really is pretty simple to put it back together. I like to put it in my parts and then put my cables on. You might like to do it another way. If you do, go ahead and do it that other way. I'm not gonna knock the process, but make sure your pins do line up before you put anything in. Otherwise you could, again, potentially damage your pieces, your parts, and make sure you put all of your parts and all of your screws back in, because it can actually stop your computer from working. That's including if you do not put all of your screws back in. So again, you want to be very careful when lining up your pieces. I might be going through this kind of fast, but I guarantee you, you guys need to be careful while doing this. I am used to doing this. I've done this multiple times, so I am able to do it a little bit faster. Do not take my ability to do that as a sign that you can do the same, because people do make those mistakes and they end up ruining their computers. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in my new fan. Okay, so the problem with my CPU connector was that my old CPU connector had actually gotten lodged in there. So after a lot of pulling with 2 pairs of tweezers, I finally got it out. So let's continue the installation here. Let's go ahead and get my USB cable plugged in right here. Yeah, I should have another cable right here. Unfortunately, it looks like I might have let it slip under my motherboard. So there we go. Go ahead and plug that in. And the rest of the cables will go on with our paneling. So, okay, so what we want to do is install our part firstly. So, part should push down, nice and easy, and install. That should drop in. Let's go ahead and get our main screw in there, which is this one right here. And then let's get our additional screws put in right over here. And let me make sure the camera can see that. We got our main screw in right there, the board connected right there, and now we're putting in our supplemental screws. Just go in right there and right in there. So that is done, we can slide that in. And now I am going to go ahead and slide in my optical drive. You do not have to do this right now, however, since I am doing it, I would suggest that you do. Slide in your optical drive, make sure it's all the way in. Now we can get our paneling and actually put it on. Okay, now that that is back on, let's go ahead and get our cables in. Our power cable is going in right now. There we go. Set. Let's go ahead and route these cables in. You know what, I might just go ahead and edit out that part of the video where I made my mistake. Let's go ahead and route these in. And get that set. You'll feel when it slides into the correct spot with that one. Again, I've told you this before, do not attempt to force the cables. You will bend and break pins. If you are unsure, check, double check, and then check again. Do not bend your pins. Okay, now that that is done, let's go ahead and put our paneling back on. Let's connect it to the body. The top 3 screws, remember, are for your keyboard, so you do not need to screw those down. However, you do need to screw down that 1, 2, and 3. So let's go ahead and get our paneling screws back on. And then we can go ahead and install our keyboard. And there are clips on the bottom of the keyboard that go ahead and slide into the bottom. So you go ahead and slide those in. Actually, you might want to install your cable first. So you grab your cable from the bottom, lift up the little black flap, and go ahead and slide your cable in. Again, there's a white mark on your cable as to how far in your cable should go. Keep that in mind as you're putting these in. If you're unsure as to whether you put it in far enough or anything of that sort, go ahead and use that white line as a reference. It works very, very well. And that is good. Slide our keyboard in, grab our keyboard screws, which should be sitting right next to our keyboard or in a suitable spot where we remember them. If you do feel like it, you can use label jars for your parts. It is a good idea. Let's grab our screws, screw in our 3 keyboard screws, which go in on the top. Again, I don't know if I stated this earlier, but this computer is missing a few screws, and they're unnecessary screws. If you do have all your screws with your computer, please do keep them with them and screw them in if I missed anything. But besides that, you should just follow what you see on here. So make sure your monitor is back when you're reinstalling this paneling. What you want to do is slide the left side down and in first, and then the rest of it should just pop right into place. So let's go ahead and push down, starting on the left side, and moving our way to the middle, and to the right, 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 and then slide your fingers down across it with a little bit of pressure. That way you can make sure it's well seated, and any possible paneling clips you might have missed will be seated properly. And then we can go ahead and flip our computer over. So first thing I want to do is go ahead and reinstall my RAM. They are in order. You see DIMM 1 and DIMM 2 on there, which means stick 1 and stick 2. And what you need to do is go ahead and line them up with the notches, and it goes in between the boards. You will see the white board on here. You'll see the bottom of it and the top of it, and there's a middle spot where the RAM goes into, and you want to push it in at an angle, and it should go all the way in, and then what you do is just push it down and you'll hear it click into spot, just like that. There's RAM module number 2. Again, push it into the center. You should have to come in at quite an angle and go ahead and slide it down. Once that is done, we can install our heatsink. Again, as with before, you want to go ahead and do them in opposite order. That way no side gets too tight. So let's get that pushed in right there, and let's get that settled down. And you want to tighten with your heatsink. You want to be very careful. You want to tighten them a little bit each. You don't want to tighten one too much or all the way and then have to tighten the others, because it will not get seated properly. So very lightly tighten your opposite screws and then your end screw, as I'm doing. Do not do it too much. You do not even want to feel tension on it your first go around. Once that is done, again, you want to go in opposite order. And again, you do not want to get them tight yet. You want to start feeling a little bit of tension, and this is important. Whether some people say it is or not, so you want to be very careful when doing this. You are seating your heatsink on your processor, and if you overdo it, you're not going to know it until your processor is fried. So now at this point, you can actually go ahead and tighten them down. You want to go just about as tight as you can tighten it with 2 fingers. You do not want to over tighten these. You will squish your processor and squish your thermal paste out of there. So be careful with that. Again, you're doing your opposites. So completing the installation of the Inspiron 1545, you want to go ahead and put your antenna cables back on, and there is a black and white indicator on the actual antenna cables, which you can see right there. There's the white one and there's the black one. So you want to put your cables on accordingly. You want to grab them, and they go right over the little spot, and you can feel when they go into spot, and then you just push them down nice and easy. You should feel them sink slightly when they get into the right position. So, for example, that one was not in the right position, and I knew that, and I did not try to push it down. And with that, you want to go ahead and grab your body screws and go ahead and put them back in. And again, as with any other part of the computer, you do not want to tighten one too much before you tighten the other. So let's go ahead and put these back in. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I just dropped a screw off my table and I caught it on top of my leg. That was awesome. My camera might be cutting out because of the lack of storage. If it does, your next step is to finish putting in your body screws. Go ahead and put in your locking screws, which if you remember correctly at the beginning of our video, we took out 4 screws.